Germany's parliament is to vote on whether to ban the far-right AfD. The decision to stage a debate and a vote on this comes just weeks before snap elections in the country on February the 23rd. The AfD polling second. Meanwhile, Angela Merkel has blasted her own CDU for breaking the firewall against the AfD. First time ever at the national parliament. That the Conservatives have allied themselves with the far-right. This was on a non-binding anti-immigrant resolution on Wednesday. For more, let's cross to correspondent Nick Holdsworth in Berlin. Nick, first off, this vote on whether or not to ban the Alternative for Germany party, give us the latest.
Well, I mean, this is a reaction to last night's debate and non-binding resolution for a sharp crackdown on immigration called by the head of the CDU and the front runner for to be the new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz. That non-binding resolution last night passed with the support of the AfD. Now, this comes after Mr. Merz had said just last November that he would never seek the support of the AfD in any parliamentary proceedings. And today's criticism by his predecessor in the CDU and the former Chancellor, Angela Merkel, criticising Mr. Merz for taking on board support from the AfD. And the AfD have been making political capital about this, saying that it's the dawn of a new era and that this proves that they are right on immigration. So it's a very febrile atmosphere, and this call for a vote to ban the AfD is a reaction to that vote last night and to the possibility that if there's another vote coming up on Friday on a reduction in immigrants' rights, beefing up police on the borders, that would be a binding vote, would be a new law. If that were to pass with the support of the AfD, then you're entering entirely new territory. And in Germany, they're very nervous about breaking what they call the so-called firewall against the AfD. They've looked over their shoulders at Austria, where the president there has had to ask the leader of the right-wing Freedom Party to negotiate with centrists to form a new government after the centrists were unable to agree one themselves. And this motion to ban the AfD is likely to be extremely controversial and won't sit well with those 20% of people who in the polls say that they're going to vote for the AfD at those snap general elections coming up just a few weeks away now on February the 23rd.
So what are the chances of this resolution passing at this point?
Difficult to say. It would be a very controversial vote if it were passed, and it would probably be legally challenged by the AfD. It's very hard to say in the current atmosphere. I mean, this is very unusual for German politics to have this kind of febrile atmosphere, which is in the context of these recent attacks by immigrants on Germans. Just last week, a toddler of 2 and an adult man knifed to death by a mentally ill Afghan asylum seeker who'd had his application for asylum refused. And of course, just in December, just before Christmas, that horrific attack on the market in Magdeburg, where a Saudi national, drove a car into a crowd of people at a Christmas market, killing 6 and injuring over 200. So it's completely unprecedented, both seeking the support of the AfD and now seeking to ban the AfD. Difficult to say how it may all turn out.
Yeah, Nick Holdsworth, what reactions are there where you are to Angela Merkel breaking her silence, if you will, since she's left office? The former chancellor has stayed out of politics.
Well, absolutely. She's been pretty careful about that. I think that most Germans that I've talked to about this, they seem to think that the circumstances require that. Now, it may only have been a small section of the population. Some may disagree with that. But I think that her intervention is a signal of just how dangerous, perhaps, German politics are becoming right now, that she feels that she should come out and make this public, criticising her successor at the CDU. They didn't get on well when they were both in government together.
We seem to have lost the connection with Nick Holdsworth in Berlin there. Friedrich Merz and Angela Merkel not getting along well when they were together in government, he was telling us there. Well, for more on this, let's turn to a German in Paris. Armin Steinbach is a professor of law and economics at the French School of Higher Learning, HEC. Thank you for being with us here on France 24. Did you hear that? It's French politics where there's supposed to be a lot of drama, not German politics. Why is this? Why is there so much drama right now? And this campaign's been quite acrimonious. We're not used to this.
We are not used to this in Germany, that's true. Indeed, it is a historical moment in German politics. The events unfolding since yesterday are unprecedented. It's the first time in post-war history that a parliamentary majority could be achieved only with the support of the right-wing party. So this is only possible due to the anti-migration sentiment in the German population, a wave on which the AfD is riding successfully. And this anti-migration sentiment is driven by the attacks that have occurred over the last couple of months.
And Angela Merkel wading into this, is it that she is above the fray and outraged by this breaking of what we call in France the Republican firewall around extremist parties? Or is she settling scores with her rival from within the CDU, Friedrich Merz?
Probably a bit of both. What we can be certain is that yesterday's event are the definite breakup with the era of Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel pursued a conservative policy that tried to integrate left and wing, and Friedrich Merz is now swinging ultimately to the right-wing side, and I think that is an occasion for her that she saw in order to intervene.
Is Friedrich Merz the only one chasing after this anti-immigrant sentiment? After all, we heard Olaf Scholz earlier this week talk up the idea of sending Afghans and Syrians back.
Certainly, this is a challenge for all mainstream parties. What we have seen over the last year is a increased and heightening of the security measures through laws that Olaf Scholz and his ruling party have been adopted. So it's really now a contest between the parties who proposes the most strictest and most restrictive measures on migration.
Now, seeing what's happened here in France, where we've had more and more law and order tough talk. The new justice minister wants to build a prison just for drug dealers. There's all kinds of schemes that are being put out, not just by the British, but by the French and others, to send migrants back. How do you address the growing anti-immigrant sentiment when you're on the campaign trail?
Well, there is no recipe that is easy to follow. We have seen indeed all over Europe that centrist parties are trying to take measures by swinging to the right. But at the end, if you look at Italy, if you look at Austria or the Netherlands, this has always been ultimately detrimental to the centrist parties. So what the way out of this dilemma in Germany would be that the mainstream parties, the democratic parties, try to agree on a set of measures that they would pursue together. Even though we have to be aware that the snap election is coming up. So there is no space to agree. It's a moment of disagreement in order to delineate parties from each other for the election.
How much do you get the sense, Armin, that politics from one country kind of bleed into another? Right now, we're all watching what's going on in the U.S. with the last 24 hours, the president there talking about using Guantanamo to park migrants. And is that something that's weighing on German politics?
It's definitely weighing on German politics. And if you look closely, Friedrich Merz is copying Donald Trump. Friedrich Merz has announced last week that on his first day as a new chancellor, he would give the order to close the borders and to reject migrants at the border. This is 1-to-1 what Donald Trump has been pursuing. So this is really the moment for the populists.
Is another German, Ursula von der Leyen, also copying Donald Trump? I asked the question because on Wednesday, she unveiled the European Commission's plan for the next 5 years. And we can take a listen to what she said about how to increase competitiveness.
The administrative procedures are too cumbersome. We have to cut red tape. We will deliver an unprecedented simplification effort.
Cutting red tape, isn't that what Donald Trump and Elon Musk proclaimed they're going to do with their Department of Government Efficiency? Is she also pandering to another of the AfD's big themes, which is the backlash against green policies?
That is certainly true. The new European Commission puts competitiveness on number one, and the Green Deal has moved back on number 2 or 3. However, deregulation is not necessarily a wide-wing topic, right? So, but what we do see, and which is critical also in this competitiveness compact that von der Leyen has released yesterday, is that there are protectionist elements. For example, in procurement, the European Commission will now prefer European products, buying European. So this is also something that is a transfer from the US.
Von der Leyen claims that by reducing red tape, it's also going to help the green agenda.
Well, this is, of course, debatable. It is certainly true that it could stimulate growth. And if you believe that by stimulating the economy and the business sector, allowing them to invest into new manufacturing sites that would then adopt non-fossil processes, it could become true. However, deregulation as such it's not a green agenda.
How big in Germany on the campaign trail is this backlash against the energy transition?
It is big. The Green Party is struggling with putting this topic on the political agenda. We've seen in the last 4 years a couple of laws that have been adopted by the lawmaker that brought people up against the Green Deal. And the Populist, the AfD, is the party number 1 that questions climate change, actually.
And are we going to see more entrenched positions on this? Or you're the country of compromise and consensus. Can there be a middle ground on this topic?
In Germany, historically, there has always been a middle ground. Germany has indeed this culture of compromise, the culture of coalition building. However, at this moment, I'm more skeptical, especially after the events of yesterday. Friedrich Merz, if he's elected, he will need to find a coalition partner. This is going to be much more difficult after what happened yesterday.
So there could be a hung parliament?
There could be a hung parliament, at least for some time, something that Germany cannot afford at all. Germany's economy is doing bad. There's no growth, no economic growth in Germany. Economic policy reforms would be necessary. So the risk is high that there could be a hung parliament.
At the end of the day, when it's touch and go like this in Germany, it always ends with a grand coalition, doesn't it? Where the center-left and the center-right agree.
That's true. However, you cannot call it anymore a grand coalition because the Social Democrats, they have been declining on only 15% of voters. The right-wing and the left-wing parties have gained. So grand coalition is a term of the past. But you are right. In the past, it was the Christian conservatives and the Social Democrats who finally came to build middle ground around the controversial topics.
One final question for you, Armin Steinbach. Elon Musk, when he weighs in so heavily on German politics, co-hosting a talk on X, formerly Twitter, with the co-leader of the AfD, Alice Weidel, for instance. Does that help or hurt the far right? And does that help or hurt the frontrunner, Friedrich Merz?
Well, it certainly helps the far right. They now have somebody who's officially supporting them, an American who is very influential on American politics, helping the AfD. Obviously, it is perceived as an interference by other German parties, the richest person of the world trying to influence German politics. It's a very sensitive issue from the mainstream party's perspective.
Armin Steinbach of the French Business School HEC, thank you so much for being with us here on France 24.
It was my pleasure.